eat meat. This is another fellow. You should remember this fellow, Luther Burbank, a contemporary of Mendel, an American botanist, prized for his skill in breeding plants. He produced several novel varieties like Shasta Daisy, Julia Butter Peach, Sanda Rosa Plum, Vixen Plum, Burbank Potato. And mind it, McDonald's used only Burbank Potato. That's a history of breeding before Mendel. So the second statement is also wrong. Let's check the third statement. Prove that gametes carry hereditary material. So this is August Weismann. Hope you remember Weismann. He was the one who proved that acquired traits are not transmitted to the subsequent generations by cutting what? Yeah, by cutting the tail of rats. He proposed the germplasm theory. In the germplasm theory, he rightly pointed out that only the gametes can contribute to the development of the next generation. So heredity is transferred to the next generation through gametes. And he ruled out the intelligence of acquired characteristics. So the third statement is also wrong. Then this may be wrong, but this may be right. First, the priest carry out breeding experiments. Monk, the priest. So this is Cyril Franz Knapp, the mentor of Mendel. Knapp actually mentored Mendel. So Knapp was a good breeder of plants and sheep. So in the monastery, there was a culture of breeding of plants and sheep. Then there is another priest, Anton Keller. He was also a fellow priest in the same monastery. He was an active member of several agricultural societies, and he published several scientific papers on breeding different varieties of melon. Published article on alternative traits of sex. Okay, alternative traits of different varieties of melon. Another priest, Anton Thaler, he had an experimental garden of himself, and in which he grew rare plants. That monastery had a culture of breeding. Okay, so that statement is also wrong. And through the previous discussions, we found that there were several scientists who already described alternative forms of a trait in different plants. So that last statement is also wrong. So all these statements are wrong. Then why Mendel? Why? Why we celebrate the birth bicentenary of Mendel if he is not the pioneer in the above said fields? Precisely because he is the first one to design a plant breeding experiment fully scientific, foolproof plant breeding experiments. I told you all the previous breeders were interested in interspecific crosses, crossing two different species together. But for the first time, Mendel decided to conduct intraspecific crosses. He selected alternative forms of the same trait in the same species. So this is one of the uniqueness of Mendel's experiment. He designed the experiment scientifically. Second thing, he proposed particulate inheritance. So what is particulate inheritance? He proposed that inheritance happens in the form of factors, physical entities called factors. Before Mendel, the concept was blending inheritance. So we can explain blending inheritance like this. Both the egg and sperm carries hereditary material and they got blend, just like juices in two glasses. So the offspring will be an average of the properties of the male and female parents. So this was the prevailing notion at that time. And why this notion was so prevalent? It is simply because of the proponent of that notion. He was none other than Charles Darwin. So Darwin believed in blending inheritance. So the uniqueness of Mendel is this: he disproved the blending inheritance and he proposed particulate inheritance. Then the third uniqueness: for the first time, he used mathematics to analyze the result of a breeding experiment. Until that time, mathematics and breeding experiments remained as watertight compartments. But Mendel correctly applied mathematics in the analysis of the results of breeding. So this is the third uniqueness of Mendel's experiments. Then, fourth one, he explained inheritance in numerical terms, in the form of numerical ratios, so that people across faculties can understand the principles of inheritance. Mathematics is a universal language of science. So expressing heredity in terms of mathematics means it is available to faculty from all the other disciplines. So that is the fourth uniqueness of Mendel. Now we have some reason to celebrate the bicentenary of the birth of Mendel, isn't it? Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, the rediscovery of Mendel's work triggered a lot of discoveries in life sciences. Let us try to understand those discoveries quickly. So this is a discovery which happened after the publication of the Mendel's work, but before rediscovery of the work. Discovery of chromosomes. Walter Fleming discovered chromosomes, and he named them chromosomes. Chromo means color, as you know. Then in 1900s, Mendel's work was rediscovered by three independent workers: De Vries, Correns, and Joshua. And in 1902, for the first time, a hereditary disease was observed. Hope you remember this person, Archibald Garrod. Which was the disease he observed? Hereditary disease. He was a physician. He observed a hereditary disease in human beings. It was nothing else than phenylketonuria, the blackening of urine. And he observed that that disease is inherited in man according to Mendelian's rules. So this is the first hereditary disease reported in man. In 1990, a group led by Junot identified a mouse with alkoptenuria. And he found that alkoptenuria condition in mouse is due to a mutation in chromosome 16 of mouse. Later, it was found that chromosome 16 of mouse is having a lot of homologies with chromosome 3 of human beings. So from that, scientists isolated a gene from chromosome 3 of human beings, the gene causing alkoptenuria. And the gene is named as HGO gene. In those patients, this particular enzyme is inactive due to the mutation. So this happened in 1902. Another thing, in 1902, the chromosome theory of heredity came into existence. It was proposed by Sutton and Boveri. And they observed that chromosomes are behaving similar to Mendel's factors. So there came the first connection between chromosome and Mendelian factors. Only in 1904, the term genetics came into existence. It was William Bateson, a strong proponent of Mendelism, coined that term in one of his letters. William Bateson was a strong proponent of Mendel. As you know, he is the first one who observed a deviation from Mendel's clues. Remember that incident, which was that Bateson crossed two pea plants with long pollen and round pollen with white flower and red flower. And he found that, what he found? He found that the plants are not obeying Mendelian principles. Later, but he could not explain the reason. Later, who proved the reason? Who proved the reason? Okay, let's try. Then in 1909, the term gene came into existence. As you know, William Johansen coined the term gene. And it means genos. It originated from the Greek word genos, meaning life or birth. And in 1911, the chromosome theory of inheritance was proved through the meticulous work of Morgan and his team members. And he is the one who explained the deviant result obtained by Bateson, Morgan, but not using Pisum sativum or pea plants, by using Drosophila. So remember the stalwart students of Morgan, Alfred Sturtevant, Muller, and Bridges. And you know, Morgan was awarded the Nobel Prize, but he refused to go to Sweden to receive that Nobel Prize. Why? He said, I'm busy with my work. So he entrusted the minister of his state to receive that award on behalf of him. That was the passion Morgan is having for his work. And he described linkage. He described that chromosome contains not only a single gene, but several genes. And he also devised a method for the construction of linkage maps through recombination data. Then in 1941, one enzyme hypothesis was proved, a link between gene and expression. This is Sutton and Boveri. They proved it using their experiments on this organism, Neurospora. In 1944, Avery, MacLeod, and McCarthy proved that DNA is the transforming principle in which organism? In pneumococcus bacteria, isn't it? Pneumonia causing bacteria. So this is the first time DNA came into picture. Same year, Barbara McClintock discovered jumping genes. She is also a Nobel laureate. And she proved that the genome is not a static entity. It is a dynamic entity. In 1952, again, Hershey and Chase, through their experiments using bacteriophages, proved that DNA is the one which is helping bacteriophages to multiply. That means DNA is the hereditary material in bacteriophages. And in 1953, the famous elucidation of the structure of DNA by Watson and Crick. And we are having 46 chromosomes. But we came to know that fact only in 1955. It is Georgine Tijoux proved that our cells contain 46 chromosomes. So these are some of the important discoveries which followed the rediscovery of Mendel's work. And there are other discoveries like this, which also followed. 1961, the function of mRNA was discovered. 66, the genetic code is cracked. 68, the first restriction enzyme was isolated. 72, first DNA, recombinant DNA molecule was produced. We have started to play with our genetic material. 75 to 77, the DNA sequencing procedure became available. Hope you remember Maxam and Gilbert method and the Sanger's DNA sequencing procedures came into existence in this period. 81, 82, we produced the first transgenic organisms, first transgenic fly and mouse. See, 80 years after the rediscovery of Mendel, we are in a state to produce or to engineer organisms as per our will. In 1982, the data bank, GenBank, came into existence. We are all users of GenBank. It came into existence in 1982. 1983, PCR was invented, another revolution. 1990, Human Genome Project initiated. 1994, the first genetically modified commercial crop is developed, the flavor saver tomato, through the RNA interference technology. 2000, we have completed the sequencing of 2 genomes, Drosophila and Arabidopsis. 2003, Human Genome Project was completed. And the saga continues. And now we are in a state to edit our genes, edit our genomes using the CRISPR tool. Here's a video showing the first patient undergoing treatment.
But then telling you that there's no reason to panic because we can fix it simply by editing it out of your genes and DNA. It really may sound like it's like a sci-fi movie with the distant future, but this new technology is already here and already changing lives. From a child,
This is Victoria Gray.
A rare disorder that is ravaged around with pain and fatigue.
A good day could easily turn into a terrible day where I see pain and I would have to go to the emergency room.
In fact, she says hospitalizations were practically a monthly occurrence.
I was at the end of my rope, I started getting depressed with my sickle cell, and because I was in the hospital so much.
Victoria, a mother of 4, says the debilitating disease was also starting to impact her children.
A lot of times I wouldn't be able to go to function because I would be in the hospital so much, and my kids would come ask me before they wanted to do something. They would be like, "Mom."
Depression gave way to desperation. Why are you willing to essentially be a guinea pig here?
At that time, I felt like I wasn't living, I was just existing. So I wanted to try something different. And
Okay, so try to follow this story. This Victoria Gray, who got treated for sickle cell anemia using CRISPR-Cas. Thanks to Jennifer Doudna and Emanuela Charpentier, the Nobel laureates in chemistry 2020. Okay, so here we are now. And after the rediscovery of Mendel's works, Now we have two databases that also you should remember. First one is OMIM. You are all aware of that. Online Mendelian Inheritance in Man. OMIM stands for Online Mendelian Inheritance in Man. It's a very beautiful, very useful database. You can search for any hereditary disease in man, and you can find out the mode of transmission, mode of hereditary transmission. OMIM. It contains several, details of several genetic disorders in human beings. Another one is OMIA, Online Mendelian Inheritance in Animals. It contains information regarding 346 animal species. So you can have a look at these two websites. All these are free. So all these advancements become possible because of the sincere work of that poor monk, Gregor Johann Mendel. So let's have a glance at his biography. As you know, he was born in a village in Poland. So this is his pedigree. Anton Mendel was his father. Rosina was his mother. This is his birth house. Is still retained. Two sisters of Mendel and brother-in-law of Mendel. Sisters were Victoria and Teresa. And he graduated from a school called Opava, school at Opava, and it was named as Gymnasium. And he joined the monastery in Brno. So Brno is in the Czech Republic. So this is the monastery building. It's still there. Then he joined, after joining the monastery, he joined Vienna University to study natural history. Then after the study, he returned back to the monastery to teach there. He became a teacher. And at the same time, he started his research on peace. So this is the grounds of the monastery where he bred his peace. You can see the garden where Mendel bred his peace. It's maintained there. This is the foundation of a greenhouse or a glass house at that region, at that monastery. This is a simple microscope he used. This is a well in the compound of the monastery where he made a lot of observations, which I will discuss after some time. This is a page from Mendel's notebook. This is the handwriting of Mendel. And in 1865, he published his first paper, Experiments in Plant Hybridization, in the meeting of the Brunn Natural History Society, 1865. But as you know, the paper remained unnoticed for 35 years. In 1868, he was elected as the abbot of the monastery. He became the leader of that particular monastery. And in 1884, he died. So this is the memorial statue in the monastery. We know a Mendel who is systematic in plant breeding, but there are some unknown facts about Mendel. Let's have a glimpse. Let's have a glance on those facts. He was inquisitive always. In addition to plant breeding, he was interested in meteorology, and he gained recognition as one of the best meteorologists in his state. He monitored wind direction and force, and also kept a record of rainfall and ozone level. By using a ingeniously developed paper technology, he monitored the ozone level in his state. And he spent monitoring water table levels in the well of the monastery. I showed you that well in the previous slide. And he published a paper on his observations on weather in the Austria-Hungary Natural Science Society proceedings. And he was an amateur astronomer, and he carefully recorded sunspots. He observed and recorded sunspots. That's not the end. He was an expert beekeeper, and he devised an ingenious cage to allow controlled mating of bees. He wanted to prove that his rules are true in bees also, but he failed there. That's another story. And he crossbred honeybees from different countries, and he was made an honorary member of the National Beekeeping Association and was elected vice chairman in 1874. And he did a great deal of work on the breeding of flowers such as fuchsia. This plant, you know, this is popularly called as the dancing girl, fuchsia. And he collaborated with a horticulturist, Johann Todi. Later, Todi produced a variety and named it after Mendel, Perlate Mendel. In addition to fuchsia, he bred several varieties of pure apple and apricots, and exhibited these varieties in various exhibitions. And he was awarded medals and certificates for his ingenious varieties. And the varieties developed by Mendel were grown in many gardens well into the 20th century. Mendel asked the abbot. So that was not a very successful story. He became the abbot in 1868. He started a fight with the government. The monastery has a license to brew wine for their consumption and also for the Holy Mass. The government suddenly started to charge a tax on breweries in the monastery. Mendel resisted that movement, and he started to fight with the government. That fight continued till his death. Then he became active in politics also. So there were two parties, German Constitutional Party and the Conservative National Party. He was expected to support the Conservative Party because the church was with that particular party, but he took the opposite stance. That also caused some problems for him. So all the biographers says that Mendel's term as an abbot was not as successful as a breeder. He was a perfect teacher. So these are some memorial notes from his students. All says that he was very gentle. He was clear in his explanations. And they all appreciate his passion for teaching. He was a good human being. These are the obituary notes published in the local newspapers. And during his tenure as the abbot of the monastery, he proposed to establish a local fire brigade in his village, and he offered a lump sum to start that brigade. So these are the unknown phase of Mendel. Then you should remember about this controversy also. Mendel-Fisher controversy. This is Sir Ronald Aylmer Fisher. You know him? He's a well-known British mathematician. Fisher. Several statistical things are derived by him. He made a comment. It is interesting that Mendel's original results all fall within the limits of probable error. And he commented that unconsciously Mendel might have placed doubtful plants on the side which favored his hypothesis. Indirectly, he is saying that Mendel has manipulated some of his data. Later, he published a book. Fischer published a book entitled Has Mendel's Work Been Rediscovered, where he expresses the same concern, but at this time or in this book, he argued that Mendel himself may not have made that alterations. An assistant who helped Mendel might have made that alteration, but none of the biographers telling anything about an assistant. Mendel did all the work by himself. But the controversy continues. In 1964 to 2007, there were several scientists pro and against this controversy. In 2008, a group of scientists, one is Edwards, is the first, the last member of Fischer himself. They wrote a book ending the Mendel-Fischer controversy. And in that book, through several statistical analysis, the authors dismissed all the issues raised by Fischer, except that the results were too good to be true. So you should remember this controversy also, Mendel-Fischer controversy. This is a movement which gained momentum after the rediscovery of Mendel's work. Can you name that movement? By looking at the poster, can you name that movement? Have you heard of eugenics? Yeah, that movement is called eugenics. Eugenics was a movement started in 19th century, and this fellow was the greatest proponent of that movement, Francis Galton. Have you heard of Francis Galton? He has a very famous cousin. What is the name of that cousin? Francis Galton is the first cousin of Charles Darwin. Okay. So he was the most strong proponent of eugenics movement. What is eugenics movement? Through that movement, the proponents dreamed that one day we can improve our race through selective mating. By not allowing disabled persons to produce offsprings, by allowing the competent persons to produce more offsprings, one day we can improve our race. That was their dream. So that movement is called the eugenics movement. So that movement gained momentum after the rediscovery of Mendel's work. So Galton is an English scientist, coined the term eugenics in 1883. Eugenics involved both the study of heredity and the use of this knowledge by parents to shape their reproductive choices. And a society called Eugenics Education Society came into existence. So they started to pressurize the English government to make laws, to legalize, to legitimize the eugenics movement. But they never gained much power or influence over British rulers. But that was not the case in America. In America, this scientist, very famous scientist, Charles Davenport, he became the director of Cold Spring Harbor Lab. He was a strong proponent of eugenics. He produced a book, Heredity in Relation to Eugenics. And he argued that through selective breeding, we can improve our race. And through his influence, he could establish a eugenics record office, an office keeping the records of disabled persons in the society and also persons with noble characters, noble traits. They could force the government to make a policy. The policy is called a policy to sterilize unfit people of Indiana state in 1907. In 1911, New Jersey passed a similar bill to sterilize unfit people. In 1907, US Congress passed a law to exclude imbeciles, feeble-minded, and persons with mental or physical defects from migrating into America. Above all, one person who practiced so this is a eugenic certificate issued by that society. In certain states, this certificate become mandatory for you to marry. You should prove that you have good traits and you are not having any bad traits. A very good dream, isn't it? So these are some materials they have circulated to educate the public the importance of eugenic movement. So one person who literally adopted the spirit of eugenics is none other than, can you make a guess? Huh? It was Hitler. He practiced eugenics in his Germany. He made a law for the prevention of offspring with hereditary disease. The law states that anyone suffering from a hereditary disease can be sterilized by a surgical operation. Anyone suffering from chronic alcoholism can be sterilized. Okay. He considered that as a heritable trait. Sterilization can be requested by the following: the state physician, in the case of inmates of hospitals, nursing homes, and penal institutions, by the head thereof. Responsibility for the decision rests within the eugenic court that has jurisdiction over the district in which the person to be sterilized officially resides. Once the court has decided on sterilization, the operation must be carried out even against the will of the person to be sterilized. The state physician has to attend to the necessary measures with the police authorities. Where other measures are insufficient, direct force may be used. So this was the law. The law came into existence in 1934. That was not the end of the story. Later, he started another movement called Action T4, a campaign not to sterilize, but to murder people with disabilities, to kill people with disabilities. In October 1939, Hitler signed euthanasia note. It's given in the slide, which authorized his physician, Karl Brandt, and Richter Philip Bohler to begin the killing. Several reasons have been suggested for the killings: eugenics, racial hygiene, saving money by removing useless eaters. The killings took place from September 1939. This is history. 1939 till 1945. About 2.75 to 3 lakh people were killed in psychiatric hospitals in Germany and Austria. Physicians in German and Austrian asylums continued the practice until Germany was defeated in 1945. See? So this was actually a trial version of the Holocaust, the mass killing of Jewish people. So this is a short video showing that Action T4. So this is actually a video which is used as a material to propagate the idea of eugenics by Hitler. It's in German language. No subtitles are available. To fighting beetles. And they are saying that the one which is able alone can survive in the fight. They are giving several such examples, competition and the success of the able ones. They're citing examples of competition in the nature, and they try to prove their point that only able ones are having the right to survive. So this was the kind of propaganda they have given for their movements. So for want of time, I'm skipping those videos. You can Google it and find out. So this is a video showing some scenes from the mass killing, Action T4. The killing were more frequently concentrated on psychiatric patients, patients with mental abnormalities. And now we know that several of the mental abnormalities are not hereditary. This is a gas chamber used for this mass murder. Okay, so the saga of Mendel continues. Some people receive it the positive way, and some others, like Hitler, use it the negative way. So if you want to know more about Mendel, I will suggest you some books. So this is why I'm like that. A book, definitely out of print, is from Russia, but you will find it in the roadside shops, second-hand book shops. I've procured one from such a shop. The book gives you an idea about the different historical aspects at the time of Mendel. So this is another book available as a PDF online, Gregor Mendel and the Roots of Genetics. A book exclusively on Mendel and his time. The third one is a very good book. She Has Her Mother's Love by Carl Zimmer. Maybe at least some of you are aware of this particular author. He's a popular science writer, Carl Zimmer. He has several books on viruses. They are also beautiful. He has a book on evolution. That's also very beautiful. So this is a very good book. This book will give you an entire picture of the history of genetics. And if you want to watch a movie on Mendel, there's a movie also, The Gardener of God. Okay, as you know, much more revolutions are awaiting us, to touch us, to heal us in the field of biological sciences. All these revolutions will be founded on the discoveries of Mendel, the principles of genetics.